Hello again, everyone. Mark Hackle, Macomb County Executive, Deputy John Paul Rea, Deputy Executive here in Macomb County. In light of the recent tragedy that happened in Oxford School District, the loss of life of 4 children, and obviously the injury to approximately 6 others, I think there's been an incredible impact it's had on not just the kids that were affected by this, their family, their friends, the school, the administration, teachers, anyone within that community, as well as the surrounding areas. And I think this it drew national attention, this particular story, and usually does. My former life in law enforcement, we've dealt with similar situations. And again, our hearts and thoughts and our prayers are with the family and everyone who has been impacted by this. It really does take an emotional toll on a lot of people. And I think listening to this, you're fully aware of what we're talking about, and even you probably to some extent felt that emotional distraught or connection to this. So with that being said, the concern is, what are we doing? What are schools doing? And unfortunately, there'll be a lot of blame passed along and what they should have done, could have done, and that's unfortunate. That will play itself out, but the reality is the person that did this is being held accountable for that, and anyone else that may have had some involvement in this as well. So with that being said, I trust the Sheriff's Department in Oakland County is doing a fabulous job of going through this process. It's got to be an incredible undertaking, just as I mentioned from my past experience, and then work in the prosecutor's office to make the declaration of the appropriate charges. We hear, every time we hear that, there's immediate response or reaction, not just emotional and that sorrow you feel, but that sense of responsibility you have to figure out what are we doing with our schools here in Macomb County specifically. And we have had contact and conversations with our school districts, specifically the superintendents and Mike DeVault from the ISD. Every one of them we've had on calls since this particular incident happened. We've actually had them all in on a Zoom, talking about what we're doing from an emergency management perspective, things that we should maybe take a look at and see if there's an assessment opportunity. And unfortunately, as we continue to try to do that, to make sure that we're providing the best, securest, safest environment for our children, we do have the challenges of what we're seeing right now, and it's the threats that are coming in. Some of them are by phone, by email, some of them being written on a wall. And a lot of that, without question, is just an attempt to somebody to be disruptive and create a problem within our schools. And it's a sad reality. We know the prosecutor's office, and I got to believe even the Attorney General, if they find any elements of crime in so doing, in other words, trying to threaten or believe there's some kind of a threat, they will investigate. Law enforcement will investigate, and the prosecutor's office will charge people with a crime, even if they think they're doing it just to be funny or just to be disruptive. Our job is to try to figure out, is there any credibility to those threats, and then obviously take action if there is. But with that being said, all this fear and all this concern has created a real problem for the school districts in making a decision as to whether they stay open, close, and then for how long do you do that. This isn't something new. We've experienced this once before, and we're going through that right now, trying to work with the schools. And so many of them are saying, we're just going to increase more presence of law enforcement, making sure that our processes are in place if there is a problem, trying to make a determination as to any of these threats. Do they impact our school? And if they don't, we make sure we get that information to the public, to the obviously parents and citizens and the children in and around the area. But more importantly, as we try to process this, allowing school to still be functioning and still be open. And so they're attempting to do that. And yet we know there's still some fears on behalf of students as well as parents that don't want to send their kids because they're still just not sure. And that's truly an emotional feeling people have, and they need to go with that feeling. I mean, don't just blindly trust, I guess. But from our perspective, we know there's enhanced presence from law enforcement. I say it every time something like this happens. It's probably one of the more safer places to be at this point in time because of that increased presence of law enforcement and understanding of what's happening. So again, our schools, I can't say enough about Mike DeVault, ISD, as well as our superintendents, that continuous conversation they have, not just with us, our emergency management, but even the Sheriff's Department, who was also on that call, Tony Wickersham, in their connection with law enforcement, to make sure we are creating the best environment we can, and making sure we're being fully transparent with whatever threats might be out there that might be concerning. And if there is, they will take action. They will close down. They'll shut down. But the reality is, do you do that even though there is no validity to a threat, or we're just not sure about that threat yet? And that's a hard thing to weigh. And so the days moving forward, I think it's going to be an uncomfortable situation for a lot of parents, the school districts, to say, okay, we want to keep it open. You still have a choice whether you want to send your kid there or not. but understand we are going to continue to make sure you've got a safe environment for your kids if they do show up for school on those particular days.
Mark, undoubtedly, as you alluded to, a tremendous emotional toll, not only for the school itself, the Oxford community, our counterparts over in Oakland County, and then the implications and impact it's had on our local school districts here in Macomb County. As you said, assessing the credibility of each one of the threats, understanding the social media chatter, what's coming across the line. As individuals continue to share something, we understand that the tenor of conversation is not only going to put a strain on school operations, but we're also going to ensure that our public safety operations are responding to all these things, as you highlighted, in the most appropriate manner. I think we just go back to the systems that we have and the exceptional relationship that we have with our school districts. We've been in constant contact with them. We understand the realities to ensure that we keep our schools as safe as possible. And we understand it's the whole notice of following that process and ensuring that there's the enhanced presence of law enforcement, not only with our school resource officials, but how we're coordinating with the local PD too and the Sheriff's Office here in Macomb County.
And it's difficult. I mean, if somebody really wants to be harmful to anyone at any point in time in society, I mean, the reality is, that possibility exists, and it's a sad reality. No one would have expected this tragedy. I know there's still question as to whether or not somebody should have been alerted, were there signs and everything in this particular situation in Oxford, and that'll all be played out. And there's going to be a lot of people, diving into this and trying to figure out, if there's more blame to pass and to deal with. But in the meantime, the reality is, how do we make sure we're providing the best environment for our kids and keeping it safe? And we've been committed to doing that for decades here in Macomb County, and that partnership we have with the schools is going to help us continue that. So we're fortunate. Again, the most difficult part is, for parents to make a decision. They want to send a kid to school or not. If the schools are open, that's completely up to you based upon your comfort level. But you know that law enforcement here in Macomb County is going to continue to try to figure out how they're working with our schools to provide that safe environment. And again, nobody can make a 100% assurance. We wish we could do that, but that's just not with today's society a difficult thing to do. And you mentioned something about social media, and that's the unfortunate reality. People think that these kids are passing along things that sometimes they get. They see that somebody posted something, or there was some kind of a letter that somebody took a picture of, or something was inscribed on a wall in a bathroom, and somebody takes a picture and they're sending that around. And through social media, it just kind of takes on a life of its own. And not knowing where it came from, you get this blank framing effect that comes into play, where people make an assumption that maybe this was our school, and the next thing that passes along that it is our school. And so people don't really know what to believe anymore, and that misinformation gets out there. And that's unfortunate, because I think the kids are the ones that get a lot of blame for that. But let's be real, there are parents that do the same thing. There are adults that are doing the same thing with this, passing along to other adult groups, posting it and questioning. If you see something, hear something, say something. And we've heard that over and over again. And the reality is, the something that you need to say it to is law enforcement or the schools, not amongst yourselves in social media, creating more of a hype or more of a scare, or perpetuating this fear. Let us have an opportunity to look at that and vet it out, make a determination. Is there something credible here, so we can at least now lock that down? We're seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of threats coming in now, and challenge to law enforcement, challenge to the school districts. But they will look at them and they will take them serious. They will vet through them, and I'm certain the prosecutor's office, if somebody needs to be held accountable, will hold that somebody accountable if they know that that threat met some kind of a threshold that is a violation of a law. And so, we have seen that in the past, and we'll see that again. There will be prosecution for those type of things. So again, minimize, I guess, if you will, the social media challenge, where people just want to pass it along and tell somebody, here's what I heard, here's what I see. Bring that information to law enforcement. Bring it to the educational institution that maybe you think this might have an impact on, so we can at least take a look at that and make a determination if it is a credible or real threat.
Mark, as you said, the partnership, the ability for our public safety agencies to be in constant communications with the districts that they have jurisdiction over, the ability for the Sheriff's Office, since the outset of the challenge that obviously, and the tragedy that happened in Oxford, understanding the pulse of what's happening in our schools. That's real time, that's happening day in, day out, and it's going to continue to be one of the things that ensures that our schools remain as safe as possible.
Yeah, me too. And again, we're very grateful for the partnership we have with our schools here in Macomb County, the law enforcement agencies that are willing to respond, and our emergency management that's been on top of this. So, with that being said, before we close, I can't help but say it again. Our hearts, our thoughts, our prayers are with those kids whose lives were lost, those that obviously were injured throughout this, and anyone who's connected to those kids out there in Oxford. We share their thoughts and their feelings on this, and the pain that they're going through is recognized. So with that being said, I want to continue to remind everyone to continue to keep you and your family safe.